Okay, good afternoon, listeners. Today we'll talk something about hepatitis viruses. The moment when we say hepatitis, we recollect Amitabh Bachchan, who's our ambassador. He had multiple blood transfusions and he had a hepatitis B infection. And recently he had a COVID infection also. And today it is reported that he has started attending work. So once again, we think of all the COVID warriors and the police personnel, the doctors, the healthcare workers, the sanitary workers. With a salute to them, we will start our topic for the day. That is hepatitis. It is primarily hepatose, is liver, infection of the liver. And many other viruses also can cause, but there is a group like A, B, C, D, E. There is no F and G. So this heterogeneous group of viruses is called hepatitis group of viruses. Why there is no F? Actually, it was designed to be called type F, but what they found out was it is only a part of hepatitis B virus, HBX. So the F was deleted, and hepatitis BX is the mutant of the hepatitis B virus. So that is why A, B, C, D, E, there is no F and G. And one more thing, hepatitis A is different from all others, being an RNA virus. Okay, so rest of the hepatitis B becomes DNA virus. That is why it is called hepatna. That we will see while we are talking about hepatitis B. All the other viruses are RNA viruses except hepatitis B. So that is why it is hepatna virus. Okay. Now, common features for all the hepatitis viruses are, okay, they love to infect liver, hepatotropic. Similarly, all cause some ictericalness. Icterus means jaundice, yellowness of the eyes. And there is a severity in range, right from an inapparent infection to fulminant fatal form. Just like in psychiatry, they say mood varying from mania to depression. Okay, two extremes are there: inapparent infection and a fatal fulminant form. Now, coming to hepatitis A virus. So remember, this is infectious hepatitis and it can be a subacute disease. All over the world it is present, global distribution. Mainly children and young adults are affected. Coming to morphology of hepatitis A virus. So what you look in the electron microscope, because viruses are ultra microscopic. 27 nanometers in diameter, and it is a non-enveloped RNA virus. So just remember, hepatitis B is the only DNA virus. Rest of all are RNA viruses. Family, Picornaviridae. Actually, it was designated as enterovirus 72 to begin with, but presently recognized as a prototype of new genus hepatovirus. Only one serotype is present, and if somebody says only one serotype, as a microbiologist or virologist, I will be very happy. You will also, or you should also be very happy. Why? Because the chances of mutation, chances of vaccine being altered, all these things are not there. Only one serotype, no problem. So hepatitis A virus morphology, that too, when you see under electron microscope, aggregated or agglutinated with antibody. So this is the picture. Clinical features, majority are asymptomatic. Overt means that which comes out, about only 5% of the infected will come out with clinically symptomatic hepatitis A infection, and incubation period is about 2 to 6 weeks. And there are two clinical stages. One is a prodromal stage, just like any viral disease, a prodromal stage or pre-icteric stage, that is before jaundice, and the stage of jaundice, icteric stage. Onset may be acute or insidious, and symptoms, most of the time, you are like fever, malaria, loss of appetite, nausea, vomiting. Any disease, especially involving the liver, loss of appetite, nausea, and vomiting. So, in other words, if you have good appetite, usually it is not something to do with liver. Likewise, if when you start having hunger, you start having appetite, and there is loss of vomiting, mostly you are recovering from any liver illness. So remember, fever, malaise, loss of appetite, nausea, vomiting, the symptoms. Signs, that is the difference between a sign and a symptom. Sign is something which the doctor elicits. So when he presses on the liver region, there will be a tenderness. The patient will say, ah, like it, okay? So, sign is something elicited by the doctor. So, on the right subchondral region, there is a pain. Recovery, okay, is slow. It may take about 4 to 6 weeks. Now, what about hepatitis A virus resistance? Up to 60 degrees for 1 hour, it can tolerate the heat. Anduku, you say, Kachi vadaposina neelu taagandi and చెప్పేది ఎందుకని? Heating above 60 degrees centigrade for 1 hour will kill all the hepatitis viruses. Ether also kills, and acid at pH 3. So as you come down in numbers or digits, the acidity will increase. So up to 3, it can tolerate. Inactivation, boiling for 1 minute. So at 100 degrees centigrade, for 1 minute if you boil, the water is free of hepatitis A. Or 1 in 4,000 formaldehyde at 37 degrees centigrade for 72 hours. So, where do you use this formaldehyde? Theater sterilization. Okay? And chlorine 1 ppm, 1 part per million for 30 minutes. That is why the municipality people will be adding chlorine to water. Okay, that's good for us. Not affected by anionic detergents. Okay, detergents, anionic and cationic, you know, detergent is a soap and it is not sensitive to anionic detergents. Hepatitis A epidemiology. So natural infection occurs only in human beings, no extra source. We are happy. And age in developing countries, infection is acquired in childhood by the age of 10. Everybody. Why is it developing countries? Mostly hygiene is not up to the mark. So people, children will be playing in the ground, and so automatically they are exposed to infection. And 90% possess antibodies to the virus and they are immune, just like vaccination, okay, by nature. In India, please remember this is a PG examination bit, type A hepatitis is the most common cause of acute hepatitis in children. So remember 3 things. One is acute hepatitis, second thing is children, another is type A hepatitis. So these 3 features, they are common in India. Okay, type A hepatitis. Frequency, less frequent in adults because of increased hygiene standards. Coming to hepatitis A virus transmission, fecal-oral route. So naturally, when you said it is contamination of water, all these things, so you naturally touch upon one thing, that is fecal-oral route. Mode of infection, contaminated food, water, or milk. Okay, so why milk? Because water is added to milk for commercial purposes. So contaminated food also, because you take water along with food, and you put the food also in water. So it may get contaminated at any stage. So factors were spread, overcrowding at food sanitation. Most of the time, below poverty line, the conditions of overcrowding and poor sanitation are present. Seasonal predilection, temperate regions, autumn, winter predilection. So in India, with heavy rainfall, okay, like for example now, we are expecting heavy rainfall, and so there are a number of cases. So we should be guarding against hepatitis A. In tropics, there is no seasonal distribution. Okay. Now, coming to the pathogenesis, how actually the virus is in the body. So it multiplies in the intestinal epithelium. So that is why it was called an enterovirus in the beginning. So multiplies in the intestinal epithelium, and then by endogenous spread, it goes up to the liver by way of bloodstream. And then it is by way of progressing further, it is shed in the feces in the late incubation period. If you remember, we said that it is about 2 to 6 weeks. So somewhere around the 5th or 6th weeks, it is shed in the feces. And also prodromal phase of illness and stops with the onset of jaundice. So once the eyes start turning yellow, the fecal samples are negative for jaundice. Viremia part, okay, there is a pre-viremia during pre-icteric phase, but ceases with the onset of jaundice. So with the onset of jaundice, the excretion of virus in the fecal matter is gone, and also there is a pre-viremia, which is mostly in the pre-icteric phase. With the onset of jaundice, the viremia also disappears. So one thing is sure here, chronic viremia does not happen. That is, it is not present as against hepatitis B. So chronic viremia does not occur, and the chronic carriers are also not seen. Coming to laboratory diagnosis of hepatitis virus. So naturally, specimen which is oral route, so this is the sample. Or antibodies in the serum. Demonstration of virus or antibody is the sheet anchor of diagnosis. So direct demonstration. How will you directly demonstrate a virus? By what? Immune electron microscopy. So please do not hesitate to write IEM, immune electron microscopy, or at least electron microscopy. And for any virus, use RT-PCR, and use IgM levels. IgM is for recent onset. IgM is for a prolonged or a chronic infection. You are most of the times. Maybe it is hepatitis, maybe picorna, maybe another, I don't know, whatever it is. Yeah, there are some standard words, you get marks. So please don't leave any question. Write something, any one of the molecular diagnostic tests, it can be done. Okay? So, direct demonstration under electron microscopy, even electron microscopy, fecal extracts. You can do the viral demonstration. Late incubation period or pre-icteric phase, because once the jaundice starts, you don't see the virus in the fecal. Serology, diagnosis is usually by antibody demonstration. So, take the serum, around again, IgG and IgM. Time of appearance of IgM, it reaches a peak around 2 to 3 weeks and disappears by 3 to 4 months. So, IgM or IgG. As I told you already, IgM means a recent infection, current infection. And late, somewhere around the 2nd month, 3rd month, or 4th month, if you see 3rd and 4th months, it is almost a chronic infection. And that too, it disappears. Okay. Now, IgG antibody appears about 2 to 3 weeks, reaching its peak, and 3 to 4 months it persists, or even much longer. IgM unte current or recent infection. IgG unte it is almost ending part of the IgM, that is recent infection coming to a close, or which has occurred in the remote past. So this is the importance of IgM and IgG like anywhere else. Now this graph is can try to master this graph, and you will find another graph like this about hepatitis B also, because it is an easier way of explaining. So virus in the blood stays between 2 and 4 weeks, and a virus in the feces, it stays between 2nd and almost 6th week or a bit late, up to 7th week. And aminotransferase, these are the enzymes that are present, and they are available in the blood between around the last part of the 3rd week up to say 9th week. So that is how the aminotransferase enzymes are there, and that too in a descending order. And symptoms like jaundice and other fever, loss of appetite, loss of weight, all these things will be between 4th week and 6 to 8 weeks. Okay. Now, what are all the things that you can detect? Either IgG or IgM. IgM, it starts appearing somewhere in the 3rd week, later part of 3rd week. It rises up to peak, say around 4 to 6 weeks, and then it starts falling down. Maybe within 12 months or 12 weeks of exposure, you don't see it. And IgG, it starts appearing again at 4th week, and it persists for a long time, maybe up to 3 to 4 months or even a bit longer. So once you see IgG, you can say it is a remote infection. So these are the immunologic and biologic events of influenza virus. So is there a vaccine? Yes, sir. We are very happy. There is a vaccine. But is just vaccine alone? No. General prophylaxis, personal hygiene is very important. Because of COVID, our personal hygiene has increased. Most of the time, at least 6 times a day, 7 times a day, we wash our hands perfectly and thoroughly in a fashioned manner. And even before food or any part of eating or any technical procedure you do, you wash your hands. So, personal hygiene is very important. And prevention, fecal contamination of food and water. So that is also very important. That is general. Specific active prophylaxis, yes, vaccine is there. Safe and effective, so formal inactivated vaccine and alum conjugated. Contents, okay, hepatitis A virus inactivated, grown in human diploid cell culture. Okay, so human diploid cell culture, you have grown it and inactivated by formalin and full course of 2 intramuscular injections. Okay, so begins 4 weeks after injection. For any international travel, they will ask you whether you are vaccinated or not, for which disease, and did you cross that time. For example, if the hepatitis A vaccination is asked, you should have taken 4 weeks earlier, because the antibodies will appear only after that time, in a detectable manner, in a protective manner. So, the immunity thus acquired lasts for about 10 to 20 years. Is there a passive prophylaxis? So, without working, I want to get marks. So, just like that, we are copying in a neighbors or copying from a child, which are not supposed to do. But here, passive prophylaxis. Hepatitis immunoglobulin, a pooled normal immunoglobulin before exposure, in the early incubation period, it can prevent or accentuate or attenuate, I'm sorry, it is attenuation of the clinical illness, it's not accentuate. It can prevent or attenuate the clinical illness. So, hepatitis A, getting it as an attack naturally, okay, and getting lifelong immunity is a different issue. Getting vaccinated, then also you have lifelong or 10 to 20 years immunity. Passive prophylaxis by way of immunoglobulin pooled, and that can prevent or attenuate clinical illness. Lifelong immunity, even if you have a natural infection, don't worry, once you are infected for life, you are safe, you don't get the infection again. And again, no cross immunity with other viruses. Okay, hepatitis A means just A, that's all. Treatment symptomatic treatment only. Okay. If there is less levels of glucose, take glucose. And there is no specific antiviral drug available. So, that is the story of hepatitis A. Coming to hepatitis B. So, this is more important. Why? If you have hepatitis B in your blood, forget about becoming a healthcare worker, at least in UK and US, because you will never be allowed to become a doctor or become a nurse or become anywhere in the healthcare professional chain. So, never ever get infected by hepatitis B if you want to have a career in UK or US. Most important in the widespread type of hepatitis, more than 1/3 of the world is infected by this. Just like TB in India. Hepatitis B is all over the world, and 1/3 of the world is infected. That means you can imagine the disease in the world. And about 1/4 of the infected. So 1/3 is affected, and 1/4 out of that 1/3 are carriers. So really big burden. Morbidity, 1/4 of them develop serious liver disease. So the carriers also, they develop serious liver disease, including chronic hepatitis, cirrhosis, and primary hepatic cancer. Remember, one vaccine, preventable cancer. If you take hepatitis B vaccine, exactly, you can prevent liver cancer. So, vaccine preventable cancer is one example, not the only example. Maybe you can prevent other types of cancers, okay, like cancer cervix, they are taking a vaccination. But at least now you can say it can be prevented by a vaccine. Okay. Mortality, more than 1 million deaths per year worldwide. So I calculated, roughly it comes 5 minutes, every 5 minutes, one person anywhere in the globe is dying of hepatitis B. So very favorable statistics. So more than 1 million, million is 10 lakhs. Worldwide, 10 lakhs per year. Prophylaxis, effective vaccine is available. Coming to morphology of hepatitis B virus, most of the time, a short notes may be asked in day and part. Or what happens to hepatitis virus which is subject to detergent, so like that. So 42 nanometer DNA, who said that it is a Hepatitis virus. So that is the reason why I kept DNA in red letters. So Hepatitis viridae, hepatitis B virus, inner core of 27 nanometers. It encloses a virus genome and DNA polymerase with a positive strand and a negative strand in the genome pattern. Electron microscopy. If you do a hepatitis B serum from patients, it shows 3 particles. So now you can see the complete hepatitis virus particle, the dead particle, 42 nanometers, and one is 22 nanometers surface antigen particle, and the other is 27 nanometer nucleocapsid with the DNA positive and negative strands, and DNA dependent DNA polymerase, and it is finally one envelope, that is hepatitis B surface. So again, this figure, if you master, a figure speaks 1,000 words. So if you get a short notes question about morphology of hepatitis virus, I for myself look for this figure. So please practice this figure. And most of the virology figures are very selective. You can easily master them. So please try to master this and label appropriately. So one spherical particle, most abundant, that is 22 nanometers diameter, Another is filamentous or tubular particle, 22 nanometers again, and a double-walled spherical structure, that is 42 nanometers, the bigger one. This is complete hepatitis particle. And first described by Dane in 1970, and so it is known as Dane's particle. So some may get a doubt, what is this Australia antigen and what is this hepatitis B surface? Both say Australian aborigine searching for some this thing. It's all history. But all because hepatitis B surface antigen in China, Australian antigen in China, HBsAg in China. That is what you are ultimately to remember. So 1 and 2 are antigenically identical. That is the spherical particle and filamentous particle are antigenically identical, and they are called the hepatitis B surface antigen and also the Australia antigen. And to reinforce, I have found the figure once more. Now the same thing. Once you subject to non-ionic detection, so the 42 nanometer particle, it becomes a virion core, the hepatitis B core antigen, which of course again is not seen in the blood, anti-HBC only is seen, and strand detergent, if you add, it becomes soluble hepatitis B core antigen released from the virion core. And once you subject the 3N and 5N, viral DNA, positive and negative strands are seen. Okay. Now, here you have to use a bit of mathematics. Hepatitis B surface antigen has two different antigenic components. One common group reactive antigen, A antigen, and two pairs of the type specific antigen, DY and WR. So, it is divided into 4 major antigenic subtypes. Why you should divide into 4 major antigenic subtypes? Whenever there are antigenic subtypes, it is for epidemiological use. For example, in the Komadi, where our college is situated, so and so ADW is more common. Whereas in Chittoor, it is ADR that is common. Maybe in America, AYW is common. Maybe in Australia, AYR is common. So like that, you can say geographically which antigenic variant is. So one side you have A and DY and WR. So A, DW, ADR. Again, A, Y, W and AYR. So this is the way you derive the ADW, ADR, AYW, AYR. So that is why I given different colors to D and W, Y and, so that you can easily remember the pattern. So ADW, ADR, AYW, AYR. Okay. Subtypes are not important in immunity. So to remember where they are important, they are not important in immunity, but they are important in community. Okay? So because the dominant antigen is shared by each subtype shows distinct geographical distribution. Okay? So HBcAg is hepatitis B core antigen. HBeAg is a soluble non-particulate nucleocapsid. So please remember that the subgroups are important only in context of geographic distribution. Coming to the hepatitis B virus genome, this is something a bit confusing. But remember, 4 overlapping genes are there, because whenever there is a gene product is there, and whenever there is a gene product that is antigen, it may be protective or not protective. And if it is protective, we are happy about it because you take it and make a vaccine out of it. So that is the reason why you should learn about the hepatitis B virus genome. So S gene is responsible for hepatitis B surface antigen. C gene, that is core, is important for HBCAG or HBEAG. Again, I tell you, HBCAG is not seen in the blood. It is covered by the surface antigen. P gene, the largest and codes for DNA polymerase. We know DNA dependent, DNA polymerase. And X gene, so earlier thought we had F this thing, but finally they found out that it is a part of B, so they have taken out the word F. Hepatitis F is not there, and what they wanted to call hepatitis F is the so-called HBX gene. So it is a non-particulate protein, HBX antigen, has trans-activating effects, that is, it activates the viral genome or the cellular genome. Leads to enhanced viral replication. Now, one is hepatitis B X antigen and another is its antibody. What is the general importance? Found in patients with chronic hepatitis and hepatocellular carcinoma, the antigen. And mutant viruses, they are pre-core mutants or escape mutants. So, in these mutant viruses, hepatitis B X antigen is formed. But naturally, the antibody shows that it is hepatitis B X that is present. Epidemiology occurs throughout the world, as you have said earlier. The different types, that is ADW or ADR, YR. So these are the things that are important. Natural infection, only in human beings, no animal reservoir, just like we said in the case of hepatitis A. Here, one thing you have to remember. There we said about tropics and all the other regions. Here there is no seasonal distribution. It is, and there is no animal reservoir. Only human beings have the reservoirs in the form of carriers. So from one carrier, the infection goes on. So blood circulating viruses for long periods. Again, one short notes can be asked. Carriers or hepatitis B virus carriers. So this is very important. When do you call a person a carrier of hepatitis B virus? If detectable hepatitis B surface antigen is in the blood for more than 6 months. Okay. So here important thing is for more than 6 months and hepatitis B surface antigen. Course of development. Following infection, 5 to 10% of adults, 30% of children, and 90% of neonates will be carriers. That is why the load of the disease said 1/3 of the whole world is infected. Okay, and 1/4 of the 1/3 are carriers. Why? Because of these statistics. 5 to 10% of adults, 30% of children, and 90% of neonates will become carriers. And unfortunately for the male species, it is common in males. So, carrier status globally, about 300 million carriers are there. India itself, 45 million carriers are there. So that's why India becomes into an intermediate group. It's neither too severe, too mild. Carrier rate is about 2 to 7%. And amongst these, South Indian, North Indian difference is there. South Indians are more carriers, have a high carrier rate. North India, lesser carrier rate. And again, carriers are two types, either super carrier or simple carrier. What is this differentiation between super and simple? So it all depends on hepatitis B surface antigen, HBE antigen, DNA polymerase, and HBV in circulation. So this you must remember. If you have elevated transaminases, that is liver enzymes, and the surface antigen levels, HBsAg, HBeAg, and DNA polymerase and hepatitis B virus in the blood with antigenic antibody to become a super carrier. What about simple carrier? Super carriers are widely infective, whereas simple carriers, low infectivity, low titer of H-based antigen in the blood, and negative HBeAg, HBV and DNA polymerase. So many super carriers in time they become or not in time, with time. I'm sorry about that. Many super carriers with the time they become simple carriers. That means the antigen starts disappearing. What about transmission? We are more bothered with transmission. So serum hepatitis or syringe hepatitis is now by way of dirty syringes, intravenous drug abusers, mother to child transmission. So there are many ways it can have with sex transmission. It can be one of the sexually transmitted viral diseases. Most of the people do not remember hepatitis B. So it can be transmitted through some other viral secretions. So mode of spread can be parenteral, that is not enteral, that is parenteral. Sexual, perinatal route of transmissions are there. Parenteral transmission, most important is blood carriers. Blood transmission, we may land up with hepatitis B or maybe HIV, we don't know. So virus present in other body fluids also, like semen, vaginal secretions. So once again, you talk about a vaccine preventable viral STD, sexually transmitted disease. Think of hepatitis B. Okay, saliva, breast milk, urine, bile, feces, any body fluid can transmit the virus. So semen and saliva, they are infectious. Others are less efficient. Feces, not at all infectious. Coming to modes of transmission, perinatal transmission, congenital or vertical transmission, or transtedial. That is from the ovary to the coming embryo. Common from carrier mothers and also hepatitis B, E, Ag positive mothers. So HBe Ag positive mothers, much more likely to transmit the infection. Mode of infection, it is acquired by the contact of maternal blood, by contact of maternal blood. Okay, so the placenta is there and placental barrier is there, but there is some admixture, at times there is rupture, and there is a direct link between mother and the developing embryo. There is a leak of cells, and maybe mother to child is transmitted. So you have to remember, one is syringe hepatitis, another is sexual transmission, and another is mother to child. In the immediate postnatal period also, it can be transmitted. Why? Postnatal breast milk feeding, one of the ways. So hepatitis B virus infected neonates, they do not suffer from the illness. That means they will be carriers. They will be carriers rest of the life. Some develop hepatocellular carcinoma. Yeah. So it's very important not to have hepatitis B infection or have hepatitis B as a carrier and later develop cancer. No. Sexual transmission, it occurs worldwide. More in developed countries, yes, because the sexual modes are a bit different in the Western world. A risk of transmission in the heterosexual workers also. Okay, so the commercial sex workers, there is a very possibility, and even the gay population. Okay, homosexuals also having contact with increased number of partners. So here the importance is increased number of partners. Just like HIV, more number of partners, more number of chance of getting infection. And there is a lurking risk through semen donation and artificial insemination. So this is one of the ways by which hepatitis B can be transmitted stealthily. So there is a risk of hepatitis B infection if the semen is not properly screened. Occupational risk. Maybe a carrier becomes a healthcare professional, maybe a dentist, maybe a cardiothoracic surgeon. We transmit the infection because we regularly come into contact with them, being surgeons. Okay? So please avoid that risk. Often getting an infection through medical and paramedical personnel, dentists, lab workers, barbers, sex workers, all these people. Their occupations are dangerous that they may transmit the infection or they may get the infection also. Transmitting infection being carriers, medical personnel and dentists who are carriers must follow adequate measures. So both ways you should be careful, either you may give the infection or even treat the infection. Coming to clinical features. Incubation period, there we said about 2 to 6 weeks only. But here it is a long period. And hepatitis B is up to 1 to 6 months. Clinical picture, it is severe and protracted, whereas in hepatitis A, it is a jaundice for a couple of months, then a couple of weeks, or 3 weeks, and then the jaundice disappears and they're free. And they may be lifelong. Here the onset is insidious, signs and symptoms, fever not common, fever is there but it's not common. Extrahepatic complications. Remember, Andhra University postgraduate. Support, AU-PG. Arthralgia, urticaria, polyarthritis nodosa, and glomerulonephritis. So these are 4 complications. Arthritis, urticaria, polyarthritis nodosa, and glomerulonephritis. Now, coming to the course of the disease, 90 to 95% adults, they recover within 2 months and eliminate the virus within 6 months and remain immune thereafter. Okay. But mortality 0.5 to 2%. So it is not as if once you get an hepatitis B infection, they are cured completely. No. Maybe a 2% you have to give margin for mortality. More in the post-transfusion cases. Why? In the blood, the levels of the hepatitis B virus will be more. So, once a transfusion with the hepatitis B virus positive blood, the chances are more than a simple needle or injection transfusion. And about 1% have fatal fulminant hepatitis. And chronic infection, 1 to 10% remain chronically infected. This is a course of disease. So we are happy about 90 to 95% of people who recover in 1 to 2 months. But the 0.5 to 2% mortality rate high. Chronic infection within a range of 1 to 10% is not too happy, I think. Now, laboratory diagnosis of hepatitis B virus. Again, the picture speaks 1,000 words, maybe here 10,000 words. Because if you master this figure about hepatitis B virus laboratory diagnosis, you can write at any time, even in the hospital, right? Midway between your sleep. If you remember this figure, you can. So let us analyze the figure. I don't know how much time is left. Now the time is 1:03. I think we have 10 minutes to go. So let us study this figure for 10 minutes and then resume tomorrow's class. So we have seen in this class about hepatitis A and its incubation period, and how a vaccine is there, and how natural infection also gives lifelong immunity. And if you take a vaccine, at least 10 to 20 years, you are safe from that. And it is a milder infection. Hepatitis A is okay, but we have seen hepatitis B morphology is there, and the viral load is too much, and carriers worldwide. And how it looks, the dense particle, and also the 22 and 27 nanometer particle, and the resistance pattern, and also various antigens that are there. Now let us come to the laboratory diagnosis. If you study this figure, important diagnostic tests, yes, one is DNA polymerase, hepatitis B particles. So the DNA polymerase, that is, no, the liver damage enzymes, ALT. Okay, so alloaminotransferase, that is raised between second and fifth weeks. Symptoms like jaundice, loss of appetite, loss of weight, anorexia, and vomiting. These symptoms are there between third to fourth weeks. And also the antibodies that appear. That is very important. You can see a red continuous line which in the beginning represents hepatitis B surface antigen. And the same subsequently after touching the baseline, it is anti-H base. Anti-H base means anti-hepatitis B surface antigen antibodies. Likewise, hepatitis B E antigen and anti-HBE, that is the blue unbroken line. And there is a red broken line, and it is showing only anti-HBC, that is anti-hepatitis B core antigen antibodies. But what happened to the hepatitis B core antigen? There is nothing shown. Just like hepatitis B surface antigen and hepatitis B E antigen, it is nowhere shown. HBC, HE. Why it is not shown? Because it is covered by surface antigen. And so you don't see it in the blood. So that is the reason why it is not shown. So, three lines, remember. Two unbroken lines. One is red, another is blue, and one is becoming hepatitis B surface antigen up to, say, at the end of fifth week or the beginning of the last phase of sixth week. And from then onwards, antibodies to the same hepatitis B surface antigen start. And likewise, hepatitis B E antigen. In blue line, there is shown that hepatitis B surface antigen. When hepatitis B core antigen, only you see the antibodies. So this is, and the timeline shown here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10. These are the months. These are the months. Okay. So what about the tests that we have to do? Hepatitis B surface antigen test. So H-base AG test, you can do from first to fifth months. Okay. And anti-hepatitis B surface antigen antibodies during the late convalescence, you can get anti-hepatitis antibodies. IgM or IgG, say between second to almost 8 months, IgM antibodies are present, and later it is the IgG antibodies that are present. So try to master this figure, because if you remember this figure, no need of remembering all the various tests that we done, which time, which rises and all. Okay. Now, we will see one hepatitis B surface antigen. I think then the time will be sufficient. Okay. Specific diagnosis depends upon the deposit of serological viral markers. So, a timeline of those viral markers is a must. Just now I was saying, hepatitis B surface antigen. It is the first marker to appear in blood after infection by hepatitis virus. So this can be a bit, that is why I have given in a separate color. Hepatitis B surface antigen. What is the first marker to appear in HBV infection? Hepatitis B surface antigen in blood. The viral marker. Mark by word viral marker. Okay. It rises even before transaminases, that is the liver enzymes. That is the reason why I said viral. So, it rises even before the liver enzymes. Remains in circulation throughout the phase up to jaundice. We said no? Once the jaundice is appearing, the virus disappears. So, rises before transaminase and onset, remains in circulation throughout the icteric and symptomatic course of the disease. It disappears within 2 months. At times, even 6 months it may be present. And anti-HBsAg, it appears when hepatitis B surface antigen disappears and persists lifelong. One more important thing is, it is protective. So that is why you can do the vaccine also. So we have come up to the beginning of laboratory diagnosis of HBV, that is hepatitis B virus, which then short course about hepatitis B surface antigen. So tomorrow we will resume with HBsAg. Thank you.